Hello, and welcome to episode 3 of the Cigar Snob podcast. I am Nick Jimenez, the senior editor of Cigar Snob magazine. I am here with Eric.
Yo.
Our editor-in-chief and publisher, and Ivan.
Hola, amigos.
Our photography editor.
Photography?
Photography. So, there's really no easy way to ease into this, but we would be remiss not to start this episode of the podcast with what is undoubtedly the biggest news in the cigar world this week, and that is the death of José Orlando Padrón, who is the patriarch of the Padrón cigar family, legendary for their quality and their consistency. He was 91 years old. And I know he was one of those figures who has been around long enough and who people respected enough that he meant a lot to a lot of people, even outside of his own company. Unfortunately, I never had a chance to interact with him a whole lot, at least not while he was more active. I've been with Cigar Snob since the end of 2013 or the beginning of 2013. But Eric, I know that before I came on full time, you guys did a pretty big, full profile of José Orlando. What was your perspective on him and his significance to the cigar world?
Well, even before we did that profile, he was a supporter of the magazine from very early on. He meant a lot to the Little Havana community, the cigar smoking community. Before cigars got, I should say, before the boom, they were it. As a little kid, my grandfather would send me. I'd spend summers with my grandfather, and as a little kid, he would send me to go on my bike to the cafeteria, the nearby. Here in Miami, we have these cafeterias, but they're not cafeterias. They're little restaurants with a window outside, and they all carried Padrón. So it was my daily routine in the summers to get on my bike, go buy the 2 Padróns for my grandfather. And so I've known about Padrón. I've been secondhand smoking Padrón since I was a little kid. So, yeah, that company's always had a special place for us here in Cigar Snob. And he himself, as a subject of that interview we did years ago, he couldn't have been more gracious. We loved it. I mean, we loved every minute of it. His jokes. When you just hung out, and I posted on social media about it, when it was just you and him in his office smoking a cigar, there was nothing better, right? The guy was just a treasure trove of stories about, and he was self-deprecating in the humor, and he'd make fun of all his friends and make fun of you in the process, and he was just a real dude, and he was a good guy to be around. So yeah, we're gonna miss him dearly. How about you, Ivan?
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to be missed. I was able to attend the celebration of life they held for him at the Biltmore Hotel. It's a tremendous loss to his family and to everybody that he touched in the cigar industry, because the turnout was incredible and there was a lot of heavy hearts in the crowd. So,
yeah, no, and like I said, I started here a little late to have interacted with him a whole lot, but George Padrón and I graduated from the same high school, which I know, Eric, you give me a little bit of shit about that connection. We were from the same weird little mafia-like all-boys high school, and the priest who's now the president of the school, I know his routine for a while. I don't know whether he's cool with me putting this out there publicly, but I guess this is the one forum where it won't be controversial. Is he gets up in the morning, he smokes Padrón while he prays. That's like his prayer hourglass, and then he goes and greets the kids as they begin to arrive at the school. And I know, him being a part of that community. It's Little Havana. It's they've been a fixture, not just in the cigar world, but in South Florida in general for a long time. So luckily, he seems to have done a pretty good job of instilling a lot of that passion in the rest of the family, and we can be pretty confident that it'll keep going for at least another generation, if not more. So speaking of excellence in cigars. We are on the cusp, right? And we're smoking. Eric, you tell us what we're. Unfortunately, I'm feeling a little under the weather, so I passed on the cigar. But the two of you are smoking what?
So we're smoking in honor of José Orlando Padrón. We're smoking a Padrón Serie 1926, number 6. Lovely freaking cigar, right? I mean, it's just chocolate and pepper and smooth as all get out. If you've never had it, I mean, I don't know. That would be a ridiculous thing, right? If you've never had a Padrón.
You know what? I'm always surprised though by how many people you come across who've never had some of these like staple cigars.
Yeah, this is like
this is the gold standard.
Well, I mean, in terms of Nicaraguan, yes, right. Yeah. In terms of Nicaraguan cigar, flavorful Nicaraguan cigar, it's what you go to.
Yeah,
right?
And it's one of those cigars, like so many others of theirs, that if what you want is to illustrate to somebody who has not done a lot of exploring what it tastes and smells like to smoke really well-aged tobacco.
That's it.
That's what you think of, or it's among the cigars for sure that you think of when you think of really well-aged tobacco in a cigar.
Yeah, and being, working in this magazine, we always get that question from friends and extended friends and family. Hey, I have to give a gift, but I really need to impress this guy. And this is always in your top 5.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe not the specific Vitola because it's a Robusto, but the Padrón 1926 Serie is always going to be in your top 5 of recommendations. Hey, you want to impress somebody? Yeah, go with that.
For sure.
They're going to love it. And the other funny thing is you find not real cigar smokers, guys that are novices. And I've had this on multiple occasions where like, man, I smoked this one thing. It was like square and it was dark. Man, I don't smoke a lot of cigars, but holy crap, that was good. And you always like, was it this? Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So that has happened on multiple occasions, and I always laugh when that happens, because when you create a product that everyday smokers, people who are experienced smokers, love, and then a novice who smokes one cigar a year tells you, I don't know what the hell that was, but that was pretty awesome. Wow, you really got something, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what we're smoking right now. I'm sorry if that makes you jealous.
Right. So, what I was clumsily getting into before, speaking of excellence in cigars, we are now in December, which means that we are on the cusp of January and the annual list of the top 25 cigars of the year. So, in anticipation of that, we thought we'd get into a little bit of a discussion of kind of a behind-the-curtain thing.
Sure.
Eric, tell us a little bit about what that process looks like in terms of narrowing all of the things that we've rated over the course of the year to a top 25. And also, I think one of the things that, at least that I've heard, is some curiosity as to why we haven't been doing it longer. I don't know if there's necessarily a reason why, but it is a relatively new thing for us, right? We started the first top 25 list was when?
2014.
2014.
Yeah.
So it's a relatively new thing. So yeah, I was here for the first top 25 list.
Yep.
What are some of the things that how is it that we do it now, and what are some of the things that we've learned over the years that we've been doing it about maybe how to address that, because it is a pretty big undertaking.
It is. But first, I think we have to give a little bit of background into how we do ratings in general. So when we rate cigars, we taste blind from a pre-selected group that are of the same size, shape, and similar taste profile. So, for example, we would take, if we were doing this Padrón 1926, it's a number 6 Vitola, which is a Robusto. So it's a Maduro Robusto. It would be grouped with other Maduro Robustos of medium to full strength.
Which is something that other magazines, as far as we know, do not do.
Correct. As far as we know, no one else does it that way. We think it gives each profile type or taste profile group a better shot, because it gives you a frame of reference when you're tasting one Maduro after another. It gives the panelists a better frame of reference of what he liked best and what things stood out. And it makes it easier to highlight the differences. So anyway, that's how we do regular ratings. When it comes to top 25, we funnel it into only 91 and up. So 91 rated and up cigars, and higher, I should say. 91 and higher are the candidates for the top 25 list. So we take that, we remove dupes, because sometimes you have multiple 91s and 92s and 93s of the same exact brand, but different vitolas. So we take the highest rated of that. Then we start to taste all, and not grouped by, again, taste profile vitola. We just taste them all one after another, after another, after another. And now your frame of reference is different. Now your frame of reference is, okay, these are all the best cigars of last year. Now how do they stack up against the other best cigars of last year, regardless of whether it's medium to full, whether it's a mild cigar? It doesn't matter at that point. Now they're all together in one giant hopper, let's say. But it is a massive undertaking, right? We have to smoke a lot. And I know that sounds, to, if you're listening to this podcast, you're a cigar smoker, that sounds like, oh, awesome. You're smoking the best cigars of last year all over again. Yeah, it is awesome. But it is a lot of smoking. Just a lot of nonstop smoking. So you're smoking at all times, trying to figure out what was the best cigar of last year. So then we compile all those ratings and comments, and we use the mathematical system that we already been using all this time. And we arrive at the best cigar of last year.
Yep.
It is a massive undertaking, also fun. And it's exciting for us to see, man. The other thing is that cigars change over time. Sometimes you'll, and that's happened to us a couple times, where you taste a cigar and it got let's say a 92 in the March issue, and now you're tasting it again in November, December, and you're like, wow, this is a completely different cigar. And so sometimes you look at that as a reader and you don't realize, you say, man, I smoked that cigar, that was awesome. And so why did it was nowhere near the top 25. What happened? Well, what happened is it may have changed. Sometimes they change for the better too. So
do you want to speak towards the way?
No, I want to speak towards the mic. Yeah. Only speaking towards the mic.
Okay, let me get back to what I was saying.
Sorry.
Do you want to speak to the weight that the newness of a release
thank
carries?
You, man.
Because I think that can get confusing, because you can give certain cigars the top.
That's why we keep you around, year. Ivan. Yeah, that's why, buddy. No, seriously, thank you though. Yeah, there is one other tweak when it comes to top 25, and that is the new cigars that were released during that year get a higher weighting. So even after all of the other factors have been taken into account, we do give an extra kick to cigars that were released during that year. So, and the reason we do that is to keep it fresh, right? So a new cigar that was released during that year has a little bit more merit than the same cigar over and over and over. So whenever you see a brand that's an established brand and it's up there in the top 10 or top 5, that means that, that cigar is really outstanding. It may not have been number 1, but the fact that it's up there so high, really it means that regardless of weight or any of that stuff, it's still got up there that high. So
Padrón is an example.
Is a perfect example. Fuente is another example.
Are always in the running.
The Oliva Melanios are always up there because they perform well every single time.
Right.
So,
do you have any favorites from our top 25 lists?
That's a good question.
Because everybody's got their own different palettes. Like we might not all have. If it were just like Nick's top 25 or Eric's or Ivan's. Ivan, do you have any favorites from I know you got the most recent top 25 list in front of you. Do you have anything that jumps out as like?
Well, some of the number ones that come to mind that were my favorites were the Davidoff Nicaragua. When that first was released, I thought that was, an excellent cigar. Mm-hmm. The My Father H2K, another great release.
Yeah, the Fuente Angel Share.
Oh,
wow,
awesome.
Outrageous cigar. H2K, man, awesome. Oliva Melanio was our first number 1, and we still love that cigar. So, and last year's is an excellent smoke. The La Misión del Atelier is it's still one of my go-tos this year. I constantly smoke that cigar. If I'm at a cigar store and just hanging out, I find myself gravitating towards that cigar all the time. I love it.
Yeah,
so.
I know. I've before I came to Cigar Snob, I was heavy on Padrón and Fuente, and I like Rocky Patel cigars, but it was never quite like my go-to profile. But the one that jumps out to me from our top 25 list, just because it was sort of it was only because I was here that I was exposed to it, and I was like, oh shit, here's a product from Rocky that like I really fell in love with. It was Royale.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what number we ranked it, but it was up in the top 5 somewhere.
Yeah, it was.
And I remember, having smoked it here when we were tasting it and during the ranking process and all that, and I picked that up, a lot of the time that I come across it.
Creamy, flavorful cigar. We dig that smoke.
Which I think is part of the cool thing about this process, right? Is that you sort of end up, as much of a chore as it can feel like sometimes, you end up with these like mental notes that you can kind of go back to that you might never have come across certain things if you weren't, deliberately smoking with that kind of analytical approach.
And something to be said for just smoking blind.
Yeah.
It's I tell people all the time when I'm in stores and they want to talk about ratings and whatnot, I tell them, just let me give you 5 cigars blind.
Yeah.
Let me just pick out 5 for you, and I'm gonna floor you. You're not gonna know what the hell they are, and you'll be surprised what the result is. Yeah. We do the same thing with wines,
and it shows how versatile a lot of these guys are. These cigar makers are. I think a lot of people who love Rocky, if they were smoking Royale blind, might not associate that with Rocky, and people who love that like chocolatey, not that peppery thing like I do, would if you told me Rocky, it part of why I fell in love with it was that surprise factor. And so you sort of discover a lot of things about these people and these factories that you might not otherwise. So pretty cool process.
Well, so look for the ratings. It'll be early January, right?
Yep.
Somewhere around the 6, 7, around there.
Right, and that'll be the top 25, and
you better see that on the website.
And that'll be for sure something that people will be chatting about and arguing about in cigar shops and all that. Hopefully, letting us in on whatever controversies are generated. But if I would also say, look out for it. Even if you're not an avid smoker and you come across this podcast, look out for that magazine in particular, because I think it's kind of a cool. It's a cool list to go through.
Sure. You're not gonna. I mean, you're gonna like everything that's there. It may not be your favorite because you may have different preferences, but you're going to enjoy everything that's on that list.
And it's good as a buying guide for
Absolutely.
At least the rest of the year, if not beyond that. So, shifting gears pretty radically. Last time that we recorded one of these podcasts, when we got into the sports arena, we were talking ACC championship. I will spare us the misery of
reliving that
game. Yeah. And instead,
misery.
Talk my fantasy football. I'm not in last place, guys. No dress. I'm in the playoffs.
Nice.
Ivan is in the playoffs. No dress.
What'd you do?
Yeah. What
just
happened?
got lucky?
What were the moves?
I was the first place team, and I ended up coming in the last playoff spot. And the first week of playoffs, I actually pulled out a win. So I'm in the final four now.
Who came through for you?
I don't know, a couple guys. couple guys there. I don't want to get into details, but yeah, I'm in the playoffs, and I'm.
That is so Ivan right there.
A couple guys.
Couple guys.
All right.
So less good news. Although I don't know if for the rest of us it's good news that Ivan won't be in a dress.
I know.
What are you gonna do? You guys are both baseball fans. Thoughts on the Stanton move and other such Marlins transactions? I know there were high hopes, or at least optimism, just for change in general, because Loria, past Marlins owner, was highly unpopular.
Yes.
And what's your outlook here?
David Sampson, right, the president of the team.
What's your outlook here? Because I know especially you, Eric, tend to be a little more measured in your reactions to these things that other people can be very passionate about in the sports world.
Well, I had a disconcerting conversation. Is that a word?
Yeah.
With with Gary Sheffield. I was at Rocky Patel Burn, and I said, Gary, what's going on with the Gary Sheffield, the ex-Marlin great, and they were there promoting the Gary Sheffield and Ray Lewis cigar. And so he said, if you think it was bad before, get ready for 10 years of bad. And I thought, what the hell are you talking about?
This is before the Stanton deal.
Before the Stanton deal. And he said, look, they bought the team with a $400 million debt. This is from my conversation with him. So right there, he said, you've got 4 years of shitty payroll, right? Bottom of the barrel payroll just to recoup that debt. And then you've got to rebuild from that point. So it doesn't look good. Honestly, does not look good. And Derek Jeter went from, oh man, we got Derek Jeter, as our president. Yeah, no one is liking Derek Jeter right now after getting rid of Stanton.
Now they're all the collusion memes and all that stuff.
Yeah, man. So that's rough. That's rough on Marlins fans. I hear they got a decent pitcher back. One of the young guys that they got back, I hear he throws 105, which is rarefied air. But still, man, that's a lot of home runs that just walked out of that clubhouse, right?
Yeah.
It's just a sack of home runs that just walked out.
I hear they got a 6-pack and a bag of chips in return for Stanton.
Well, they got Starling Castro, who they're, I'm sure, dealing. So, it's not pretty. It's not pretty. I don't think we want to bring people down with this, Nick.
All right, sorry. Well, not all of our audience is Miami. There might be other people who
laugh at this.
We might have some Yankee fans listening.
My God, they're throwing a party. You got Judge and Stanton on the same lineup. I mean, that's crazy.
So shifting gears to actually something that has an element of not great to it. So not to be a downer.
Is this the not great podcast?
I know. But I was just in Boston for coverage for an upcoming travel story that's going to be in the magazine. So just some notes. I know the two of you had been before, although it had been a while, no?
Mm-hmm.
And this was my first time in Boston. I was shocked. Of all the places that I've traveled, whether for Cigar Snob or otherwise, this was far and away the least active, closest to non-existent cigar scene, which was surprising to me for a city that's so old and historic, where there's so much diversity and such distinct neighborhoods and all that. There was a lot to love about Boston, but before we get into some of that, just wanted to pick your brains on number one, what have your experiences been like in Boston? Do you have recommendations or things that you remember fondly from the trip? And also, what does it say that Boston's cigar scene is the way that it is in terms of just the cigar industry? What can be done about it, if anything? Where should our focus be? Because Boston is, at least in terms of major markets, I was oblivious, but Boston looks like a worst case scenario, even compared to other pretty restrictive places. Like, I mean, LA looks like Tampa.
Paradise.
LA looks like Ybor City compared to Boston.
Yeah, absolutely does. Well, my recommendations have all closed, so I can't even give you best places to go smoke. I mean, Stanza de Cigari is the one sort of holdout where you can still go.
But even eating or whatever else whatever you remember really loving about Boston.
So, great restaurant, Craigie on Main. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but I loved it. Highly recommend that place. In terms of defunct cigar places, what was that? Was it called Boylstown? No, Boylston Street Cafe. What? No. Anyway, Cigar Masters I loved. What was the name of that other store? You talk about the other recommendations, Ivan. I'll get you that name.
I don't remember many of
I got it in the issue.
cigar shops, but I just remember how great the people were in all the bars we hung out in. Again, from a sports perspective, everybody was so knowledgeable and so passionate about their New England sports. As much as I hate the Patriots, and got snow jobbed. But yeah,
Gloucester Street, that was the place. Gloucester Street Cigar Company, man, they had such a selection of boutiques when boutiques were still not terribly popular. That was back in 2009 that we went to Boston. So Cigar Masters, great experience there. That's why I had Boylston, because that's what street it was on. But I remember we had Mike Lowe. Mike Lowe came in and hung out with us. Mike Lowe went to high school with us. So hung out, smoked a cigar with us at Cigar Masters. Anyway, it's sad. It's sad to walk around Boston and not find. I mean, you've got the oldest retailer in the country, L.J. Peretti.
Yep.
And then there's not a lot more.
Yeah.
In like Boston proper, right?
And
What
now,
else was
and
there?
now the weed industry is going.
Yeah, you can smoke weed anywhere.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they've got medicinal pot up there, so you walk through parks and you can smoke weed, no problem. But you smoke a cigar walking through a park, and it was cold enough that we didn't run into that issue very much because a couple of Miami guys. I was there with Andy, our art director, who is even more averse to cold weather than most of the rest of us. But yeah, whether you go. There was one shop in downtown Boston, which was L.J. Peretti. There was Levitt and Pierce.
That's over by Harvard, right?
Over by Harvard and Cambridge. And then there was in the North End Stanza. But outside of that, man, it was maybe you'll find a humidor over
tough
here.
Sledding.
Yeah, pretty tough. On the other hand, there were some great things. I was almost equally surprised by how walkable and how easy to get around Boston was. So that was a pretty good experience there. We had a great Italian meal at a place a block away from Stanza called Bricco, Bricco. Highly recommend that.
Did you do a Mike's Pastry?
We did not. We didn't get around to Mike's Pastry. So one of the sort of like
Told you not to come back without one.
I know. Kind of like what you were saying about smoking the top 25 cigars and all that kind of it. Believe it or not, even for luckily this is an audio format thing, but if this were visual, you would see that I've had my share of pastries. And even for me, some of these travel things can be a bit of a chore because you're constantly looking for things to recommend. And for a cigar magazine, that means eat, smoke, drink, eat, smoke, drink, eat, smoke, drink.
Yeah.
So Mike's.
Poor you.
I know.
Poor you.
I was too loaded with risotto from Bricco to get around to Mike's Pastry, but we'll have to leave that for another time. Unfortunately, we were with Andy, who has a shellfish allergy, so
that limited you.
It limited the chowder. But yeah, Boston all in all was great. But fair warning to anybody who hasn't been, expect tough sledding. Like Eric said, if you're a cigar smoker, you're going to end up at Stanza, which is a great little spot, but that's where you're going to be. So let's check in on these Padróns. Unfortunately, I don't have anything to contribute, but what do you guys have to say so far?
I mean, if you could see this, it's like a little chocolate bar
Yeah.
with a solid clump of white ash on the end of it, and that's kind of what it tastes like. It's these cigars are ultra consistent. They always are. You get chocolate and pepper, and maybe you get some like dark cherry or raspberry notes in there in the background, but dark chocolate, espresso, pepper, and it's the whole way through. You're getting the same thing, and it's if you like that profile, which I happen to love, you're loving it. It's like a smokable dessert. Right.
Yeah, I love it too. It's that same profile that I always like to pull for. And every time somebody asks me, "Do you like that cigar? I mean, what do you like about it?" I always say it's one of the few cigars that I always smoke all the way down to the nub, and I'll like pinch it at the end, and I'll smoke as much of as I can of it because I love it so much. So yeah, it's a great stick.
Very cool. All right, so we're gonna round this one out here now that we've given this ringing endorsement to this Padrón. What else do you guys have to recommend? We're gonna leave people with some parting recommendations. It could be anything. Could be eat here, read this, watch this, do this. What are some things that you've done?
What you got, Ivan?
Yeah, what you got in the back of your head?
All right, so I haven't purchased many things for myself recently because I'm looking ahead towards Christmas. So I'm buying.
What about the glasses? What about how did the glasses do from last podcast?
Haven't played with them yet. Oh. Haven't played with them. As soon as I play with them, I'll tell you how great they were.
How many strokes?
For people who didn't catch the last episode, we were talking about some sunglasses that
Sure.
you'd bought, and they're supposed to take 10 strokes off your game.
Oakley Prism golf glasses will take 10 strokes off your game, guaranteed. So,
But you can't stand behind that statement personally.
not yet,
Okay.
not yet, but I will.
All right.
So again, I didn't purchase any gadgets aside from those glasses because I am buying Christmas gifts. But I did have some cheese that I had. That's great. One of our panelists here is not going to be tasting this cheese because he doesn't eat any dairy product. But go try the Sartori Montemor cheese. This thing is amazing. You'll probably find it at most supermarkets across the country. So it's something that's widely available.
What kind of cheese is this?
It's I think it's a Parmesan style is what they describe it. It's from Wisconsin, so I thought they only made cheddar there, but this thing is Parmesan inspired, which is how it's classified. Anyways, it's fruity, it's nutty. Thing is delicious. You can put it on, you can just cut it up, put it on toast. You can put it in a sandwich. You can crumble it up and put it in salads, whatever you want.
Look at you
This
making
thing is
cheese recommendations.
delicious. Which you won't be having.
No,
So-
I won't. No, I won't.
I will say, as a one-time resident of Wisconsin, I was surprised by how good cheese, because it's one of those things that you hear people talk about Wisconsin cheese, and I think until you've been there, or maybe until you've been to Vermont, it's you haven't quite wrapped your head around just how good American cheese from America, not American cheese, but cheese from America can be. So it's cool to see some of that stuff making it out of Wisconsin, because we don't tend to get a lot of that stuff here.
Wow, Ivan with the cheese.
Ivan with the cheese.
So I just got back from Santa Fe, New Mexico. I love that town. Bought some art. I think that's what everybody does when they go there. But we went to this one restaurant, Coyote Cafe. Coyote. Wow. Outrageous. Had the elk tenderloin, and just, I want to go back just for that. I'm not kidding. I don't want to buy any more art, but I want to go back just for that elk tenderloin. If you've ever had elk, I don't know. I don't have it a lot, but this was the best I've ever had. So, highly recommend that Coyote Cafe. I am currently reading Shoe Dog, the story of Phil Knight from Nike. Recommend it. It's fun to see the history of that company, all the troubles they had early on, and even in their heyday, they were still having all kinds of trouble. So it's nice to see that other companies that are going through that and persevere and become a global brand, a household name. So it's a cool story. Shoe Dog is my recommended reading. One last thing. On the flight, I saw, because of Ivan's recommendation, Atomic Blonde. Charlize Theron. Good Lord, she's hot. The movie is it's a fun movie. I enjoyed it. So thank you for the recommendation. Made the flight from New Mexico a little easier.
Should have had it with the cheese. Would have been better.
It's a good pairing.
Good,
Perfect,
very true.
Perfect pairing for next issue.
How about you, Nick?
So the last time that we did this, I recommended a YouTube video called Slippery Stairs.
Oh, I have not seen it.
You got to catch the slippery stairs. I'm going to stick with the YouTubes. This time around, I think a lot of people might have come across a video that went viral maybe at some point in the last month. It was a rap video titled "I'm Not Racist," which was actually a very well-written thing, whether you agree or disagree with whatever the perspective is, but very well-written thing by a rapper called Joyner Lucas, Joyner, last name Lucas. And it brought a lot of attention to him, but I'm not sure that too many people have heard his other stuff, and it is good. So if you're a rap fan, check out Joyner Lucas. Highly recommend that, especially if you're into like old 90s and early 2000s stuff. And since Eric made 2 recommendations, I will also make a second recommendation. I am reading sort of an old book, but Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics. So Thomas Sowell was like the protege of Milton Friedman.
Yep.
And Basic Economics is so far haven't like gotten to anything mind-blowing, but he's just really good at framing things in a way that is
Easier to read than Milton Friedman?
easier to read than Milton Friedman. Very like plain language stuff, and it's about as fun as reading economics can get. So recommend that as well. And with that, unless we have any parting thoughts, Eric is watching.
Yeah.
I'm sure having
Can I
his
give you
mind
audio?
blown. Oh yeah. Slippery stairs.
That is Slippery Stairs, everybody.
So that is Slippery Stairs. Again, run a YouTube search for Japanese Slippery Stairs, and you're in for a good time. All right. Thank you very much.
All right, guys.
See ya.
Go out there and smoke a Padrón.
Yep.